Matt Rosenthal is a technology and business strategist, as well as the president and CEO of Mindcore, the leading IT solutions provider in New Jersey. Mindcore offers a broad portfolio of IT services and solutions tailored to help businesses take back control of their technology, streamline their businesses, and outperform their competition. Welcome to the show, Matt.
I'm happy to be here, and I'm looking forward to a great conversation.
And I am delighted as well. I really love technology. My business, not an IT company, but definitely could not work without technology. So this is one of my favorite topics. Tell me a little bit about how you got into this field.
I stumbled into this field, and I think that's common. I think it's common. I have a degree in criminal justice and in sociology. I wanted to be a police officer, and that's pretty much all I wanted to be from the time I was like 14 years old. Unfortunately, I had an injury. I tore my chest bench pressing in my 20s, and that kind of changed the path for me. And I spent a lot of time not knowing where I was going or what I wanted to do. Ultimately, had an opportunity presented to me by somebody to go work in IT, learn on the job, and I said, "Sure, I'll take it." I didn't know anything about computers. I was like completely non-technical, or so I thought, and I just fell into it. And once I got into it, I learned quickly. I self-studied, and I really always had this drive to want to know more than everybody around me because I wanted to be of value, to my employer and to customers that we were serving. So I got pretty good at it, and kind of took that typical path in that business of getting certifications and becoming more and more technical and being at an engineering level. Somewhere along the line, I discovered I was entrepreneurial, and I had this real knack for understanding business and just kind of good at it. And so it transitioned into having my own IT company. I'm giving it a very short version. This happened over the course of 10 years.
Of course.
So I stumbled into it, really began to like it, enjoyed it, found I was good at it. Then that transitioned into me servicing and serving other companies who needed the overall like IT strategy and delivering solutions. And it just kept growing and growing. Then I did some mergers, acquisitions, and just kept growing the company. There's a lot of really cool stories in there, a lot of lessons I can teach people or share with people about the mistakes I made over all those years. But I just fell into it. And by the
Yeah.
way, it has nothing to do with sociology or criminal justice.
And we may need to come back and do a second podcast about the lessons you've learned along the way.
A great conversation.
I think it would be. So you are not a break fix IT company. You are a strategy and consulting IT company. Is that correct?
We've evolved into that being something that focus more time on. So we
Okay.
do deal with break fix, but that's everybody does that. It really like the strategy and the understanding of what a company needs is where everything starts. So if somebody contacts us and they're like, "Hey, we need somebody to fix our systems," it could be a 25-person law firm or a 500-person public company. It doesn't matter. Every single thing that we do has to start with IT strategy and understanding and some critical thinking. Like without that, what for us to just fix a broken computer doesn't really deliver any true value. That's just a commoditized sort of, we'll call you when we need you. My air conditioner is broke, kind of thing. And we're not like an HVAC company that just responds reactively to something's broken. It really is a partnership where we do deliver all the services that any company needs inside of technology, but it begins with the strategy, and it has to. Otherwise, what are we doing? Like, how am I really helping you if I don't know what you're trying to achieve? And then sharing with you how we achieve that. No different than your accountant, your lawyer, your doctor. It's you have to know where you're going and why you're going there.
Absolutely, absolutely. So that's going to segue perfectly into all these strategy questions I have for you. As you're working with business owners, of course, they present different problems to you. How do you assess if that tech solution is the best one that supports their business?
That's the beginning of every one of those conversations. So let's say you came to me today and you wanted to talk about that. The first thing I would do is go through a series of questions, like have a really good in-depth conversation. Tell me about your business. Tell me about what your business goals are. Tell me about where you're looking to bring your business. Tell me about your customers, and so on and so on. Once I have a really, really good understanding of what you're trying to achieve as the business owner or as the decision maker or business leader, then I say, great, now I understand where you're trying to go. Now let's look at what you have. What systems do you have in place to get you there? Then I find out where the difference is. Like, okay, well, no, what you have here in terms of cybersecurity, no, that's not going to protect you the way you need. Or I don't know, the cloud or the servers that you have, no, that's not going to get you what you need to run the software you want to run to be able to meet your sales goals. So once I have a really good understanding of the business, where it's going, and what the intentions are for 1, 3, 5 years, it's very easy for me to look at the existing IT infrastructure, phone systems, search engine optimization, all of it, and say, here's my recommendations. If you want to reach this point, we advise that you do this, this, and this. Oh, and by the way, here's some of the risks that we also see in your current environment. And we should address those as well, because you can't reach your goals as a business if these risks exist, and we should remediate these and have a plan for those. That whole strategy is where the foundation of the IT plan comes from. And if somebody turns to me and says, well, we don't want to invest in our technologies, but we still want to reach these goals, I'll hopefully be able to draw that connection to say you can't reach those goals with the technology in its current state, or at least without having a plan over the next 6 months to a year to invest in your technology so that you have the systems in place to reach those goals. Otherwise, you're just not going to reach the goals. You started out by saying how important technology is to business. That's what we're talking about. If a business leader, owner, decision maker doesn't make that connection, I don't know that we can even help you. If you're my doctor and you say to me, you have high cholesterol, and if you don't do something about it, you're going to have a bigger problem, and I continue to just not want to invest in taking a medication and ignore it, I'm going to have that problem. My doctor might turn to me and say, I've done the best I can. Maybe I'm not the right doctor for you. We kind of, at that point, would take that approach. Maybe we're not the right company for you, because we don't really align ourselves with businesses that want to achieve goals, but then choose consciously to not make the decisions they need with their technology to allow them to reach their goals. Then what good are we? It's really about alignment. The business desires and goals aligning with your technology. And that's why it always starts with that strategy.
Absolutely. I would agree with that. And I suspect that during the pandemic that you're seeing an increased need for this type of consultative service.
We are.
Yeah. Can you give me an example, like a real life example of one problem and the solution that you provided?
The most common problem that we saw was businesses not being prepared to work remotely, even though we always give advice that you should really be leveraging the cloud more and be able to work remotely because it's good for business and productivity and efficiency. A lot of businesses don't take that advice because it requires the investment. And unfortunately, technology is still something where people look to cut costs rather than to actually see it as probably the best investment they could make. We saw several people that we had given advice to over the years, when it came to working properly remotely, all of a sudden scrambling. Like, how do we work? We can't work from home now. And it happened very quickly back in March and April. We, for many of them, had to react and had to get them quickly into solutions that we had been advising. But the biggest mistake I saw that came out of that whole experience was, and we certainly can't look at our customers and say, we told you so, but it was a lot of that, we told you so. So we did get the buy-in that we needed, but it was only because they felt so much pain that they made the investment in their business. And it's so much better if you proactively make the investment at your own pace rather than reactively do it because you have an emergency. And even that changes the energy of solving the problem, because now we're just trying to solve it quickly because your business is impacted versus like calmly and quietly because we have time, because it's proactive. It all ties back into your original questions. Like, the strategy and the budgeting and that all happening proactively, that's the beginning of every IT conversation when it comes to your business. So the biggest issue we saw was people not being prepared to work remotely if there was a disaster. Those people that were prepared, in our experience, they didn't feel anything. They just went home and they worked, and we got very few calls. But that was the biggest issue. The second biggest issue, which you didn't ask me, was cybersecurity.
Uh,
You're probably going to ask me, but if someone to tell you, is cybersecurity. We make recommendations on that all the time. The environment now is more dangerous than it's ever been. People are more aggressive than they've ever been, as far as trying to breach into your company. And because of everybody having their guard down, because they're scrambling to be able to learn how to work in this new way of working, there was a lot of people clicking on those spam emails, those phishing emails that, when you click a link, all of a sudden somebody's in your network and now they've got control and now you owe them some Bitcoin if you want your stuff to be decrypted. Huge surge in that happening. And we saw a lot of people that weren't doing the penetration and vulnerability assessments, which is a cybersecurity thing you should do. And they didn't have the right processes and systems in place to train people. We saw a lot of people impacted, some big breaches that cost people some real serious downtime. And while you're having a reduction in your business revenue because the economy is slower and everybody's fearful, the last thing you want is an impact to your business where you can't even operate to service the customers that do need your service because of a cyber breach. We saw
Absolutely.
that too, a lot of that.
Yeah, that brings a couple things to mind. First of all, I had a client who used a cloud storage. I think they used Storgate, and they received a notice from the post office that they had gotten a package. They called the post office and said, "Hey, what's in it?" They thought they were doing their due diligence, and the post office, not being IT people, said, "We don't know, open it." And they did, and it was ransomware. And so everything in their cloud storage, and they built large, pollution reduction facilities at manufacturing plants. So all of their blueprints, everything was ransomware, and it cost. It really did. The second thing it brings to mind is my company is remote and has always been remote. We train our people the minute they start working on what phishing scams look like. It's part of our handbook. This is what it looks like. These are the things to watch for, and do not click on anything that you were not expecting. So, yeah,
That's it.
yeah. And I mean, and it's really simple to implement the things that you're suggesting. It might be a little less simple in a larger company, but it's, that training literally is a 30-minute training to give your employees, to give them the background they need not to compromise your systems.
The biggest risk is the employees in any company. And the number one most important frontline protection is the employees in any company. So if the employees in any company are trained and they know what to look for and they're sensitized to it, that's your best defense. However, if they're not, it's your biggest risk.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So you've talked two things you've mentioned multiple times, both cloud and budget. So I want to address both of those. Do you want to talk about cloud first?
Sure.
Okay. So
You're in charge. I'm following your lead.
so, you've mentioned in the cloud, and I know that some business owners, particularly if they're not tech forward, they cringe at hearing about using services in the cloud. What are your thoughts there?
My thought is that is true. It's becoming less common over time. Early adoption ended years ago, and sort of that general acceptance phase is where we're at with adopting the technology. Oftentimes, the fear, unfortunately, gets in the way of making the change. So fear of change, which is a personal thing, and it's certainly a very human thing, is really what's underneath that. So it takes, it takes having the conversations, it takes learning and becoming comfortable as a decision maker or as a business owner or the leader of the company to know that the best thing that you can do for your organization is to try to put your own fear of the unknown aside and try to look at what the benefits are, the pros and cons, what the risks are, and look at what the real true benefit to the company is if you adopt a cloud technology. That being said, every cloud technology, there's nothing that's the same about cloud technology across companies. Every company needs something different. So once you go back to the strategy question and you say, what are the requirements? What's the business's goals, plans, aspirations? What numbers are we trying to hit? And you really know where you're going. You kind of back into, okay, great. What's the ideal cloud solution to help us get there? And there's no two clouds that are the same. Like, even though everything seems like it might be the same, there's always stuff that's customized. There's always things in particular that your organization would need that's different than somebody else's. In fact, I oftentimes will talk to a business owner who will say to me, this is the best. I didn't think it was going to cost this much to move to the cloud. And I'll turn and say, okay, I understand that. I'm curious. What did you think it was going to cost? Right? Because I truly get curious about where that people come to these conclusions about how much things are going to cost. It's like me calling my accountant and him saying to me, it's going to cost you X amount of dollars to have a personal financial done. And me saying, wow, I thought it would cost half that. Why do I think it would cost, based on what? I'm making it up in my head. Or maybe my neighbor had one done and it cost him, a certain amount of money. That brings me back to the point. What everybody's businesses are different, and your cloud needs and the cost for your cloud are really going to be specific to your business. There might be commonalities that are kind of typical average budgets, and that's true, but you need what you need as based on your business's needs. One thing I would tell you that I do believe you need is you need to be in the cloud, and you need to be in a cloud model that works for you, because when disaster strikes, you don't want to have local infrastructure in your office. When people need to work remotely, they need to know they can rely on the systems being up, not a power outage at your office, or your power outage, not even if you have a generator, your generator failing, or whatever. Like, you really need to think through the importance of cloud in today's economy. There is no how it used to be, and this isn't a COVID conversation. This was already happening. It's just
Right.
COVID sped it up. What do you need to hit your revenue numbers, to have your sales team be efficient, to have your marketing be efficient, have your operations be efficient, your finance be efficient? You need efficient systems, and you really need to have a good solid cloud solution, which also touches on phones. Use as an example, Office 365. That's a really good unified communication system that includes a Microsoft phone system. That entire package altogether will exponentially speed up your efficiency, your productivity in your company. There's no question that it'll do that. What customizations or what version of that? I don't know. I have to talk with you. Like, we have to figure out what the best fit for your business is. Yeah, sure. It's $20 a month for E3 Office 365 per user, but it might be also an additional X dollars a month to do some add-ons that would add value to your company, or your cloud migration journey. Your project cost could be $10,000 more than your neighbor because you needed something different. You needed customization. So everybody should go to the cloud. You should understand what the benefits are, and you should understand what the cost for you really is. And even if you're going to go out and shop it around, at least get a good business case underneath it that somebody needs to do for you, that you can hand to your 2 or 3 people you're going to get prices from, and say, this is what I want because I had somebody who wrote the spec, who understands my business, which is part of what we do. We know people shop everything, but I'll say, let us work with you to figure out what you really need, and then at least take that and shop that around. But don't have 3 different vendors give you 3 different unrelated quotes because they have 3 different ways of doing it and they don't really understand your business. That's my answer to you about cloud. You need it, you should have it, but you should have a really good trusted advisor and a professional that understands your business needs and can help you figure it out. Ideally, for example, using us, we would do that for you and you would use us for all of it. But even if you go and shop it, at least you've got something good to shop.
Absolutely. We're we are a huge fan of Microsoft 365. Um, And Google Suite comes in close behind because it's an inclusive system as well. We just
Sure.
prefer Microsoft. So, but some of our clients do use that. So we are familiar with that capability, being the call system and all of that stuff. So I agree with you on that. And,
Yeah.
you talked about budget. How is the best way that our business owners can plan for a budget for their technology needs?
The most important thing a business owner should do is look at your technology budget as an asset, not a liability. I mean, I know the whole thing is technically, literally is a liability because it's an expense, but in your mind,
On
talking
the
about,
books, at least it is.
yeah, in your mind though, your technology is an asset. And so if you begin with that in mind, you should begin to say to yourself, what my business goals are, what am I going to need to spend this year, this month, this year, and over the next few years, so for my technology to be the true asset that it is. And there's a couple of things you look at. One, what's the cost going to be for cybersecurity proactiveness? That's a must. It's if you don't protect yourself and do proactive things like network monitoring, penetration, vulnerability scans and penetration tests, um, and put a risk prevention plan in place, that will become a true liability because if you haven't been breached already, you will. It's inevitable. Everybody's going to have some sort of cybersecurity breach. So budget for that. In fact, have an emergency fund in case you have a breach, but certainly budget for the proactive measures. And that should be in your budget every year. And frankly, it should be increased every year as long as your revenue is increasing. Increase your cybersecurity budget. Your reoccurring costs for things like your Office 365 and your cloud and your phone system, those things should really be looked at, and they should really make sure that every year that you're matching those up with the evolution of your business. So as you mature as a business and mature as a business owner, your technology needs to mature with you. If you don't, what will happen is you'll end up every 3 or 4 years having somebody say to you, yeah, we have to replace everything. Yeah, the reason that you're not reaching your goals is because your technology is 5 years old. And of course you're not going to reach your goals. Of course things are going to be slow. So have that in mind, like embrace technology, like love the technology. You don't have to be an early adopter and be at the forefront of everything, but you really need to plan for it. I don't know that there's an actual percentage. Some people in the industry say that 10% of your revenue should go to your technology. I can't sit here and tell anybody in their business what percentage of their revenue they should put to their technology, but I can tell you that you shouldn't look at your technology as a line item that is something you should bang away at and try to reduce as much as you can and make sure that you're spending as little as possible, because there's a direct correlation between spending as little as possible and the outcome of that. The outcome of spending as little as possible is an increased risk. So there's an inverse relationship. The less you spend, the higher your risk is. The more you spend intelligently and in an informed way, the lower your risk is. So budgeting wise, what's your cost? If you take a spend as little as possible approach, then what is your budget for the outcome of spending as little as possible with the security breach, with the loss of productivity, with the increased need for support, for IT support, and all of that? You're still spending it, but you're spending it in an unplanned, reactive way, which is not budget control. Budget control is go the other way. Trusted advisor, strategy, what's the word I'm looking for? Like an analytical approach to it, right? Looking at it that way, and
Data
then
driven.
and then there's still a word that's escaping me, but having that in place and knowing your risk is down. So now your planning is up here, your proactiveness is up here, your risk just went down here. You know that you're going to have far less reactive IT support things happening. You've certainly reduced the risk of having a cybersecurity breach. It could happen, but it's way less likely. Even if you do, as part of your strategic planning, you've got disaster recovery and backup. You've got that all in a flow, in a system. And you know that even if you get hit with a cybersecurity breach and somebody wants 10 Bitcoins, which at this point would be about $300,000,
It is a lot.
even if somebody wanted that, you know what you say? I don't care. I'm going back to my backups from last night and restoring my entire infrastructure because you've planned for it. That's what budgeting should be. And it should be an investment in your future. First of all, as a business owner, it's an investment in yourself and in your family because it's an investment in your business. And because it's an investment in your business, you're protecting your employees and you're protecting your customers. That's how important smart IT budgeting is. Sadly, too many business owners still look at it as a line item that they can reduce costs on as much as possible. The reason for that, I don't want to get too verbose, so is that many of the business owners today are still generationally in a mindset where they look at technology that way. It's changing now because generationally more people are aging out into or growing into being mature business owners who grew up on technology, who know the importance of it, who know that the reliance on it. And when I work with those business owners, so I don't want to say ages because that could be taken the wrong way, but when I work with those business owners who are aging into now becoming business leaders who grew up on technology in the past 10, 20 years, those conversations are very different. They know they must be in the cloud. They know they need backups. They know the importance of technology, and they realize they can't function without it. They tend to look at it as an asset versus a different generation that looks at it as a liability. That's where I see differences in outcomes for businesses. So I would encourage everybody that sees this to embrace and love your technology and realize it's an asset. You cannot work without it. You cannot reach your business goals without it. You won't reach your financial goals without it. And frankly, if you just look at it as a way to reduce costs, ultimately it's going to impact your business, your employees, you and your family, because it's going to impact your ability to make money.
And that was the next thing I was going to ask you about too.
Bringing it home.
Yes, that was the last thing I was going to ask you about. I do know that technology can increase revenue. Tell us about how technology can impact that.
When you put together everything I just said and you're using it to your advantage, unquestionably, undoubtedly, it's a fact, makes you more efficient because you have better workflows in place that are using the technology to allow the workflows to exist. Right? When your revenues increase or decrease, it's based on one of two things: people or process. It's even if it's sales, your sales process could be broken or the people could be broken. When your technology is right, your processes are right. And the only thing left to look at is the people. And you can train them and you can educate them, you can replace them. But unless you look at yourself first as the person in the company who's the leader, the owner, the decision maker, and you've made sure that all your systems or your technology are right and your processes are right, you'll have increased productivity because of better workflows, more efficiency, and that ultimately gives you more capacity to be more productive, to deliver on promises to clients, to increase sales, to focus on marketing. If you don't, you'll know it. And here's the barometer. Here's what your gauges in front of you will tell you. And it might not be something you see. If you feel that you can't get to the most important things you need to do every day as a business leader or owner because you're getting pulled into the weeds, that tells you your technology isn't working for you. If you find that people are calling you all day and asking you questions that they shouldn't be asking you, your technology is not working for you. If you find that you're working more in the business than on the business, your technology is not working for you. It's not making you the money it should be making you. And there's no shame in making money. Your business is there to make money. If your business doesn't make money, if it's not profitable, you don't have a business. And if you don't have a business, you can't employ people. And if you can't employ people, you can't help them to put food on their table and to help them with insurance and to fulfill that responsibility, right? You have a responsibility to make sure your technology is right and to invest in it. And those are some of the symptoms you'll notice if you're feeling those things as a business owner or leader. Don't blame the people in your company. Look at yourself first. Look at your technology and say, is my technology doing what it's supposed to be doing for me? If it is, your revenues will be healthy. If your revenues are dropping, even if you're losing customers, that doesn't mean it's a people problem. It could be a technology problem. That means there's a workflow in your business that's not serving you because you're not realizing you should be calling your customers more and communicating, especially now in a time where that's the best, most value you can drive to somebody is to be there for them. Well, if your technology isn't somehow telling you to do that, reminding you, you're relying on people to remember, your revenues are going to drop. This is a question I could answer in an entire hour podcast and keep going on, but you will see a drop in revenue if your technology is not working for you. The opposite, you'll be running at 20, 30, 40% margins. I don't care what business you're in. Even if you're in a traditionally low margin business that's high volume, if your technology is not working for you, it's even more important that you get it right. Because if your volume drops, you're in trouble.
Absolutely. Absolutely. This has been such valuable content, Matt. I want to make sure that our listeners can find you after the show. So how would they do that?
The best way to find me is on LinkedIn. So look for me and Matt Rosenthal, Mindcore. You'll find me. You can also find me on YouTube. Same thing. Just search Matt Rosenthal, Mindcore. There's a lot of video content on there, which is all just about helping people. You can email me at matt.rosenthal@mind-core.com. If you're editing this down the road, hopefully you'll float that across the screen. But definitely the easiest way is on LinkedIn.
Absolutely. Well, I thank you for being here on the show today. And we'll consider having you back to learn about all those problems, because I think that'll make a very interesting podcast.
Listen, we're all about serving people. So if we can help people and we can get them this information, I would love to talk to your audience and help as many people as we can together.
Perfect. Have a good day, Matt.
You too. Thanks.